we play a game?
Why, yes. I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Live from Little Rock, it's Shane Plays Radio, Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Thanks so much for joining us, whether you're listening live on 96.5 FM The Answer out of Little Rock, or if you're listening online via the 96.5 FMTheAnswer.com stream on the website, or if you're listening by podcast. Appreciate you so much. Remember, the show does go out as a podcast version a couple of days after the live show. And we're also, never want to forget to mention, we are on week delayed on KryptonRadio.com. KryptonRadio.com is SciFi for your Wi-Fi. So we always run a week delayed on Krypton Radio. So other quick housekeeping notes. Remember that the show notes for today's show are up on ShanePlays.com right now. That's ShanePlays.com. And so that way, as I'm talking with my guest, and I have a fantastic guest today, just absolutely tickled to have him on the show. You can keep up with the news items and learn more about the guest that we have and that sort of thing. So if you're like, what were they talking about, or I want to know more, go to the show notes at ShanePlays.com. Remember, the show does go out as a podcast. A couple of days after the show, it'll go out on my blog at ShanePlays.com, iTunes, Google Play Music, and Stitcher. I also put it up on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed to the Shane Plays YouTube channel. So, Jill, is that you typing, or is that Alec? Is that you typing? I can hear some type. Yeah, no problem.
Sorry.
No problem at all. I just want to make sure we weren't causing that. So I know you're busy. I'll introduce you just in a second. That's a super secret hint to our major cool guest today, folks. So, and he was on the Subspace Starfleet channels right there, sending messages. So, yeah, and then of course, Shane Plays again. We're carried on Krypton Radio, a week delayed. Well, with no further ado, I'm gonna introduce a guest. I've been working with him for a few weeks to have him on. And he was kind enough to reschedule with me when a previous show didn't work out due to personal reasons on his end. I've got Alec Peters from Star Trek Axanar on the show. Alec, welcome to Shane Plays. Thank you so much for being on.
Hey, pleasure being here.
Yeah, just so glad to have you. I'm a Star Trek fan anyway, and then Axanar, of course, is just amazing. Even if all the other news going on with fan films wasn't going on, I mean, I think Axanar would still be in the forefront of the news. So, folks, I also want to remind you, this is talk radio. It's not just a pod. There's nothing wrong with podcasts, but this is live terrestrial talk radio. So if at any time you want to call in, you can call 501-823-0965. That's 501-823-0965. That number is good whether you're local or if you're listening online in Bulgaria. You can call that number, 501-823-0965. Or you can tweet me at Shane Plays. That's ShanePlays. So, Alec, what we're going to do real quick is we're going to do a quick, brief news segment, and then we're going to roll right into talking about Axanar. And the news this week is Star Trek centric. So, GL, let's fire up the microphone and see if the news team is working today. Let's listen to the super secret microphone in the news. There they go. You're not the only one typing, Alec. They're in there working hard. Those guys work hard. They work on weekends. They work on Saturday. And for every $1 of Patreon support that Shane Plays gets, they get a penny an hour raise. I mean, that's a pretty hard deal to beat. So if you love the show and you love the news, make sure to throw a pledge via Patreon, and that news team will get a penny an hour raise. So for the first news item, and Alec, feel free. I always encourage my guests to talk during the news segment. So if you have anything you want to add on any of these news items, you're welcome to.
Okay.
But the first one, of course, very sad. We've lost Anton Yelchin. I hope I'm saying his name right. The Star Trek actor, age 27, was playing Chekhov in the new J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. So he died in basically a freak accident last weekend involving his Jeep. I guess there was a known issue with the shifting in the Jeeps, and it caused an issue, and he was actually pinned and died. He's not only was he in my opinion, one of the more interesting actors in the newer Star Trek stuff from J.J. Abrams, but he was doing some other stuff, so he was kind of, his star was rising, if you will. Do you have anything that you wanted to add to that, Alec?
Yeah, geez, it's such an absolute shame.
It absolutely is.
So young and so talented. I mean, he was also in Terminator Salvation.
He was.
Just when someone that young passes away so tragically, it's just such a shame, and he'll be missed by Star Trek fans and fans of all movies alike.
Right. Well, he not only it sounds like we got a little bit of feedback there. But he not only was a good actor, but he had this quality that if people even if they didn't like what JJ was doing with Star Trek, and some people do, some people don't, almost everybody universally liked his take on Chekhov. I didn't hear anybody complaining about him. He had an interesting take. He voiced the first season of Guillermo del Toro's new animated, it's like Troll Hunters that's coming on Netflix. I don't think they've released it yet, but he voiced one of the major characters. So he was definitely a rising star. What I want to do real quick, just to honor him, I'm going to take, and dead air in radio is a no-no, but I'm going to take a few moments and we're just going to do a moment of silence to honor his passing. All right, and that moment of silence was to honor Anton Yelchin, the star of not just Star Trek, but definitely known to Star Trek fans as Chekhov in the new J.J. Abrams movies. So you'll be missed. I don't know how they're going to handle that moving forward after Star Trek Beyond. So he'll be in the Star Trek Beyond that comes out July 22nd. So the other news items are going to be no surprise to anybody listening. Alec, feel free to comment or not, because I know we said I'm not going to get into anything you don't want to get into. But I need to mention that CBS and Paramount, they have released their so-called guidelines on fan films for Star Trek. And anything I'm about to say does not reflect the opinion of Alec Peters or Star Trek Axanar or any other fan film franchise or effort that I know of. I don't know if franchise is the right word. This is my opinion. So be very clear, even though that Alec is on the show today and we're talking Axanar, I'm not saying that this is Axanar's words. So people make that distinction.
I'll tell you what Axanar's words are.
Okay. Well,
you got me here.
All right. Well, let me throw mine out there, and then you are welcome to throw yours out. And I welcome them. I just don't want to push you into anything you don't want to talk about. These guidelines are at best a joke. And are at worst, they're draconian to the level that it's an insult to the word draconian. These guidelines are ridiculous. They make any fan film to date basically out of bounds. They talk about who can be in your film and all. They have all these rules that have nothing to do with intellectual property law at all. They say that you can't be more than 2 15-minute segments. All just ridiculous stuff. I'm not even gonna do them justice to even read these rules. But the one that really that captures the essence to me is the one that says that you can't use anybody that may have been in a Star Trek thing before. Man, that's up to the actor. That's up to their choice. If they want to be in a fan film and do it for free and not make any money, that's their choice. Paramount and CBS, this is not your call. These are draconian beyond draconian. Now, I understand that you feel like, hey, we've been put into a position where we need to issue some guidelines, but these guidelines should only deal with is somebody else making money off of your IP. That's it. And if you can somehow argue, even though all these fan films are increasing the value of your IP by keeping fandom alive, if you can somehow argue that the IP is damaging your brand, somehow, that's the only two things that should be applicable. All this other stuff is a joke. And there's a link on shameplays.com in the show notes. The Krypton Radio did an article listing all these guidelines. They're an absolute joke. CBS Paramount, it's the 50th anniversary of Star Trek. Shame on you. That's all I got to say. Shame on you. Other than outright making any fan film illegal, period, this was the worst possible first step you could have taken. Now, that's what I have to say on it. Alec, if you have anything you want to add, feel free.
Oh, how much time do I have?
Well,
listen, I will start off by saying that you hit it on the head.
Right.
I don't disagree with anything you said. Now, let's just back up. Yeah, that I have been asking for guidelines for fan films for over 4 years. I had my first meeting with Liz Kolodner, the head of the executive vice president of CBS licensing in 2010, on the lot of Paramount Studios, asking about how to make fan films the official CBS Star Trek universe.
Right.
How do you bring them onto their website? Okay, so I've been asking for guidelines forever. So this certainly, if you want to blame me for having CBS come out with guidelines, I don't consider that blame. We've needed guidelines. We've had nothing. As I have said, and as CBS readily admits in their court papers, they said to me, we will not tell you what you can do, and we will not tell you what you cannot do, but we will tell you when you cross the line. That's the principle they've been working on up till now. And we wanted some guidelines. Me more than anyone has been talking to CBS saying, give us some guidelines.
Right.
Let us know what we can and cannot do.
You've been wanting to be a good player.
I have wanted to be fair and honest and respectful since day one. Okay? And I called a meeting with them last summer in August, which everyone knows about. And I met with John Van Citters and Bill Burke, and I said, guys, and they told me that line, can't tell you what you can do, can't tell you what you can't do, we'll tell you when you cross the line.
Right.
Well, that doesn't help me, okay?
That's saying is they want to reserve the right to swoop in when they feel like it.
Now, you would have thought, being that I was a Star Trek licensee in 2010, that I helped them sell all the assets of Star Trek The Experience through an auction we did in 2010, that I volunteered my time cleaning up all the Star Trek archive, cataloging, volunteered my time. I stored their assets in my warehouse. I have a relationship with Liz Kolodner, the EVP of CBS licensing. I met Ken Ross and sat with him and talked with him about Star Trek at the premiere of Prelude to Axanar. He's the EVP of CBS Home Video. I know Bill Burke, John Van Citters, the head of CBS licensing. You would have thought, if I crossed the line, they would have called me up and said, Alec, you've crossed the line. We need you to change X. We need you to change Y. Whatever.
Right.
No,
right.
You, out of respect, you would have thought they would have done that, and they didn't. They sued me instead. That was their way of saying you crossed the line. Now, that's highly inefficient. Okay? They had my phone number. They could have picked it up. Rather than working with me, they could have worked with it. They could have made
it sounds to me like you made multiple well-lit roads for them to know how to get to you if they needed you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, we have kept saying you need guidelines. Now, so if you want to, and it's interesting, watching this all happen over the course of the week, fandom has broken into two parts. 95+% of fandom is putting the blame squarely where it belongs, CBS.
Yeah.
And they hate CBS. You should, if you go to the page where they announced the fan film guidelines, last time I checked, there were almost 200 comments, and 95% of them were CBS. You're out of your mind.
Yeah, it's like I said, this is no joking matter because there's more at stake here than just Star Trek fan films. There's a deeper principle at stake here, but to call these draconian is an insult to the word draconian.
It is. These rules are specifically meant to eliminate Star Trek fan films. That's what they're meant to do. They basically looked at every Star Trek fan film and how do we eliminate this fan film? Because, you know, they have always said, and listen, they've said to me, we don't like dealing with fan films. It's a waste of our time. We don't want to be spending any time dealing with fan films. And
but they
what they have done is they have
increase-
codified that attitude.
Well-
They've now made it impossible for anyone to make a Star Trek fan film outside of a 14-year-old in his backyard.
Well, you can make a vignette, but you can't tell a real story. I mean, you could, this whole 15 minutes or less over 2 episodes of a storyline and all this stuff. I mean, it's just absurd. And what kills me, and this attitude comes in and out of CBS and Paramount at different times over the years since the beginning of Star Trek. Sometimes they're friendly to the fans, sometimes they're not. If it wasn't for fandom being what it is, the IP wouldn't be worth anything near what it's worth. It wouldn't be worth it. That's what kills me, is that like stuff like, and I'm not against the J.J. Abrams movie. I'll watch them as a decent action flick with a little bit of Star Trek mixed in. But the real Star Trek, what Star Trek really is captured by the fan community. They're the ones that have kept that alive and have been giving me what I want out of Star Trek for the last 10, 12 years. So, it just blows me away. But, yeah, go ahead.
I don't disagree. The Star Trek fandom is amazing. It's an amazing group of people. So to finish my thought, 95% of fans realize, look, this is bullshit.
Bull snookies. Yeah.
That's ridiculous. But then there's people who want to blame Axanar for this. Well, you guys poked the bear. Well, you know what? I'll take credit for forcing them to put out guidelines, but no, I will not take the blame for forcing them to. No one forced them.
Yeah. To
put out draconian nonsense that is meant to eliminate fan film. No one forced them there. I went 3, everyone knows, 4 weeks ago, I went and talked to a bunch of all the fan film producers. Let's get together and suggest a set of guidelines to CBS.
Right.
Got snubbed by James Cawley of Star Trek New Voyages. Couldn't even talk to Vic Mignon at Star Trek Continues. And I put together a bunch of film producers. One of those film producers, and we started talking. We had a private conversation on Facebook. Let's talk about this. What do you think these guidelines should be? What should we suggest to CBS that we can all live with? And we talked about it. And then one of them decided to leak that to some blogger with a vendetta against Axanar, who then posted it. And basically all these fan film producers, all of a sudden, they wanted nothing to do with it. All of a sudden, they were running for the hills, posting little "I support CBS Star Trek," photos on their profiles, and they were all basically like, "Well, we want nothing to do with it." Well, you know what? Remember what Ben Franklin said, guys. We must all hang together, or surely we will all hang separately. Right. So right now, I don't really want to hear it from any of them about how Axanar screwed fandom. All the fan film producers had the chance to hang together and to put a united front, nay, I say a federation of fan film producers, and say, hey, here's some guidelines we think are fair that we all have talked about and we all together have thought would be good, and we could all live with these. Can we have a discussion? But that's never going to happen because they all want it. It was all one man, each man for himself, and so obviously no one's learned anything from Star Trek.
Well, the thing that kills me is if they thought that by somehow supporting CBS and Paramount that they were going to get preferential treatment, no, it's not like that. They're like, oh, I mean, and I like the production. I like Star Trek Continues. I like, New Voyages Phase 2. I like the product they're putting out. But they are now nullified too.
Well, they are. And it's a shame because listen, I worked extensively with Star Trek New Voyages, helped get out their episode Katunda.
Yeah, didn't you let them use some of your sets or something like that at one time?
No, they let us use their set.
Okay, all right, okay.
I actually got them their new studio that they're in. I've done a lot of work for Star Trek New Voyages, like the people up there. That is the granddaddy of Star Trek fan films.
Right.
I know people on Star Trek Continues. Todd Habercorn is a friend who plays Spock, does a magnificent job. Matt Busey, their DP, is a wonderful DP. He does an amazing job on that show. Chris Doohan and I met at Salt Lake City Con last year and had a wonderful conversation. He's a huge fan of Axanar. I'm a huge fan of his work. I felt really kind of, it was a little geekasm in that I got to tell him, I said, Chris, your portrayal of your father's role is so spot on. He would be so proud of you. And I got to tell him that, and it made me, he's Star Trek royalty. And so I love, there's great things about fan films. I'm always pushing Star Trek Intrepid, the Scottish Star Trek fan film that Nick Cook is, who does a wonderful, wonderful job. And I always joke that I love seeing a starship full of Scottish-speaking people. Yeah, it's hysterical. Yeah. And then there's Greg Locke, who's doing this great little movie, Star Trek fan film called Ambush. Amazing little project over in the UK. So there's lots of interesting Star Trek Renegades, which is filming right now, which is a really wonderful project. They did great work. Sky Conway did Of Gods and Men, and then Renegades, and now they're doing Renegades Requiem.
Right. Yeah, there's some really, really good stuff going on out there. And
there's a lot of great stuff. And it's a shame. Right.
It's keeping the Star Trek Prime universe alive. And like I said, it does nothing but enhance the value of the overall IP. Anyway, we've got a caller real quick. We have David. I believe this is David from Mega Wars, who's a friend and also we talk about his game on the show a lot. David, welcome to Shane Plays. Is this David Beatty?
Yep, it's me.
All right. Did you have a question or comment for Alec?
Yeah, Alec, I would be one of the ones that never watches Star Trek done by CBS again. I mean, you guys have done such a great job with enhancing the story and everything else that if there's any way we could support you guys, let us know. We would love to do that.
Oh, well, thanks. I really appreciate everyone who supports Axanar, even JJ, and especially J.J. Abrams and Justin Lin, who came out in favor of what we were doing. It's wonderful that they take such an interest in helping the fans. Unfortunately, JJ and Justin haven't gotten CBS to drop the lawsuit, and it's unrealistic for us to think that the studios, and especially CBS, which has no, would listen to JJ and Justin and drop the lawsuit. As wonderful a filmmaker as JJ and Justin are, I saw the first JJ Star Trek movie 4 times, which is more times than I've ever seen in any movie in the movie theater. Got to go to the red carpet premiere, and I will sing the praises of that movie to anyone. And Justin Lin, Robert Burnett and I are huge Fast and Furious fans. And he's a huge Star Trek fan, and he really gets it. And I'm really excited about Star Trek Beyond. So the thing I'm telling people is, please, because people are like, I'm boycotting Star Trek Beyond. Don't. Please go see Star Trek Beyond. Whatever Paramount and CBS are doing to Axanar and to me personally should not affect our support of JJ and Justin, who went out on a limb for us, for the fans, not just Axanar, for fan film. JJ said, we shouldn't be suing our fans, all right? And he's talking about everyone. So
yeah, because the people that supported you we're being sued too.
Yes, we all are. Yeah, in a way, yes,
we're
we
being
all
attacked.
are.
Now, to clarify that,
a better way to say is we're being attacked.
Now, David, are you talking about the people that contributed to Axanar by
people that contributed to Axanar that sit there and promote it? I mean, I share Axanar with everybody I can because it is beautiful. You got our Prelude to Axanar, excuse me, beautiful. I mean, everything that you guys did was top notch. As good as anything as what anybody else has done out there. But they're attacking all of us that support you. It may not be a legal document, but they're attacking us too, saying, hey, you guys have no rights to even enjoy this.
Yeah, and I don't listen, I don't disagree, right? CBS is saying, no, we're not going to allow you to watch fan films anymore. Now, I'll be honest, I've never been one for for fan films, honestly. In the last couple of years, things have really changed, right? Things, I mean, especially if you look at the Star Wars fan films that have been coming out lately, they're amazing, right? So I'm a big fan of people making fan films, and I think impinging the rights of people to make fan films, which Shane hit on the head. The rule should be you can't make money. Fine. If CBS wants to say, you're not allowed to pay yourself, okay, fine, say it. If you want, if you, but also let's be honest, CBS, why don't you just come out and say you can't make anything good? Why don't you just say that?
Right.
All right. Because that's what you're basically telling everyone. Nothing that anyone, nothing threatening to the CBS brand.
All right, Alec, David, I hate to do this. I got to get a break in. I really hate to do this, but I got to pay. Speaking of paying the bills and whatnot, I got to pay the bills.
If you let me make one comment on the other side, I'll be good.
Well, go ahead and make it now, and then go ahead.
Why can't CBS treat this as an app on an iPhone and say, hey, if you're going to make a fan film, we want 30%, and then here's the rights, you're done. Then they get free money. Hello.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a whole. I would imagine that's crossed some of these fan filmmakers' minds. We'll get out if Alec wants to speak to that. We'll do that on the other side of the break. In the meantime, I had a note here I was gonna do later in the show, but since it's come up, I had a note that I was gonna share with you, Alec. So let me be clear. I'm a fan of Star Trek fan films, and there's a lot of really good stuff out there. I mean, I really think there's some really good stuff out there.
There is. Yeah, there absolutely is.
But I think the level of quality in storytelling, acting, and special effects of Axanar just flat out startled them. So I think this lawsuit is as much about that as money involved when you're saying you can't make anything, quote unquote good. Hey guys, we're gonna cut to a break. When we come back, what I'd like to do, Alec, because I want to speak some positive stuff about the future of Axanar as well. So
sure.
When we come back, let's maybe talk about what's going on good with Axanar and the future of that. David, thanks for calling in, man. I appreciate you, and I will back up what David said. He's been talking Axanar to me. He's like, dude, you got to get Axanar on your show. You got to get Axanar on the show. I mean, he's been telling me this forever. So he really is a huge fan. So, and of course he does Mega Wars. People go to megawars.net and check out his game. All right, we're gonna go to a break. When we come back, more with Alec Peters and Star Trek Axanar. Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today.
Megawars.net. The classic online space strategy game has returned, bigger and better than ever before. Scout the universe and claim your empire. Construct, customize, and launch dozens of different starships. Battle thousands of opponents online in a team-based competition leading to the ultimate Battle of the Galaxies. Grab your slot today for the only online game where tactics and strategy still reign supreme. Visit megawars.net and get options only available in our special pre-sales previews running now. Megawars.net.
The die is cast.
Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Trollord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions, Castles and Crusades is the original easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/Shane Plays. Hey, welcome back to Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio. A journey into the things we love, and we just got done talking about that we love Star Trek, but we don't love what CBS and Paramount is doing with their so-called fan film guidelines, which are a joke. Nobody's fooled here. And joined by Alec Peters of Star Trek Axanar. Amazing fan film. We've had Prelude to Axanar, and he's working on releasing the entire Axanar movie. And so what we talked about before the show, or before the break, was we're unhappy with these guidelines, but that's not the whole story. So what I want to kind of shift over into, what's going on good with Axanar, what's the future of Axanar at this point. And seeing that I've seen 2 trailers for Axanar released this week, I think that Axanar is sending a pretty clear message that they feel it still has a future, but I'll let Alex speak to that. Folks, don't forget, this is talk radio. Whether you're listening locally or if you're listening online anywhere in the United States, around the world, you can call 501-823-0965. That's 501-823-0965. Or you can tweet me at Shane Plays, ShanePlays. And go to ShanePlays.com. There's show notes up there that has the links to Axanar, Prelude to Axanar. It has links to Alec's statement on these guidelines that have come out, and it's got the links to the trailers that came out this week. So having said all that, what's the future of Axanar? What are we looking at here, Alec?
Well, I'll say we're going to have a statement this week on that. Axanar is not going away. I will tell you that. Okay. Remember, we're in a little different position than everyone else in that we're getting sued. And Axanar, I think the chances of seeing a full-length Axanar feature are diminished. We have been talking since day one about making Axanar as a series of, Prelude to Axanar was episode 3 of the 4 Years' War documentary.
Oh, okay.
Well, what if Axanar was episodes 4, 5, 6, and 7? Okay. The benefit there, of course, is you're doing it in a style that is we feel falls firmly in fair use, the legal principle
that's massively important, because CBS can throw all the guidelines they want out, but there's existing law out there that you can refer to. So, I don't know. I want to be very clear. I don't know if these guidelines would hold up in court.
Well, here's the thing. One, they're guidelines, right? Basically, CBS reserve, if you violate those guidelines, if you follow those guidelines, CBS will leave you alone. And if you violate those guidelines, CBS reserves the right to sue you. Without getting into the legalities, because I can't talk about the case, of course. I
understand that, yes.
But there's a principle of fair use in copyright law, which says, you may be the copyright owner, right? And CBS has to prove that they are in court. We're not going to accept that just because they say they are. They have to prove it. And that doesn't just mean coming up with a document that's from the government saying, yeah, we have this copyright. It means showing chain of title and all that. So CBS has to prove that. But even if you are, there are certain ways that I can use your intellectual property in a transformative way. Parody is one of those ways. Okay, that's how all those porn parodies you see are made without violating copyright. It's a parody,
right?
It's a comedic pornographic takeoff on Star Trek or Batman or Star Wars. So parody is one way. A documentary is another way. Okay, there's clearly going to be a massive documentary about this whole thing when all is said and done.
It's a major milestone moment in Star Trek history, and you guys are caught smack dab in the middle of it. So
yeah, I think it's potentially a major moment in Hollywood history. All of Hollywood's looking at this case, and they're wondering what's going to go on. And since we're firmly pushing the fair use argument that Prelude to Axanar was transformative, and it's done in a way that was never been done before. Star Trek's never been done that way before, and so again, I can't get into the argument for fair use, but
I understand.
We think that there's a case there. So unlike all the other fan films that are just going to modify what they do to avoid CBS's to adhere to CBS's guidelines. We're in the middle of a case. CBS chose to sue us. We did not choose to get sued. And so being that they have up until now chosen not to settle, then, we're stuck in this lawsuit. And but we want to, we are pursuing for Axanar and for all our fans and our donors, we're pursuing what are the opportunities for us to fill our obligations to our donors? Because that's really important to us. And we owe a lot of them a Blu-ray and or a DVD and a soundtrack. And what are those things? And how can we fulfill those within the law? Whether that law be what CBS wants it to be, or whether it be what the court says it can be.
Well, and that speaks to what David was saying before the break. In a way. Now, not strictly on paper, but in a way, CBS and Paramount are attacking the people who supported Axanar, right? Because we this is what we were wanting to do, and and now CBS or whatever has stepped in the middle of it. And that I wanted to explore too. He asked that question. Can you speak to whether the discussion of what about a licensing, like, and this is not a perfect example, but Dungeons and Dragons has opened up this thing online where you can write adventures and material for Dungeons and Dragons, post it through their online web store, and then there's a revenue sharing of 50-50. Can you speak? Has anything, are you allowed, or has it even come up that is any discussions like that ever entered the mix?
I can tell you that no discussions like that have ever entered the mix with CBS or Paramount. I can also tell you that almost every Hollywood insider that I meet says to me, why the hell didn't CBS just acquire you guys?
Yeah, well, it's that level of quality. It's telling a great story.
And listen, they could have made millions of dollars by releasing it direct to DVD or streaming it or whatever. They could have made a ton of money off of this. And if they had called and said, Alec, we're not comfortable with this. We need to have some control over it. Here's what we want to do. We would have been, sure. What do you want to do? Let's work together. We would have jumped at that chance, right? Who wouldn't have? Right. We've tried to be respectful. But we're also, listen, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a technology entrepreneur. I started 2 technology companies. I spent 10 years in the Silicon Valley atmosphere. We were based in Atlanta, but I was in Silicon Valley all the time. We were in that world where you're taking chances, you're taking risks. How do you explore? How do you make something bigger and better? How do you do something different? How do you do something disruptive? Right? That's the world that I spent my time in. And so to come up, to come to this, it's like, how do we make this professional? How many do we make it? And in a way that's never been made before. And the fact that fans like you, like Dave, like the tens of thousands of fans, about 2.4 million people have seen it on YouTube. We were just at Denver Comic-Con this weekend. Everyone comes up to us and like, I wouldn't watch fan films, but I'll watch Prelude 10 times over. It's amazing how many people say to me, I make all my Star Trek friends watch this. Yeah. Or I took it to the office. I made everyone at the office watch it. Now, I can tell you that with all due respect to all the other Star Trek fan films, that's not been said about any of them. No one goes around saying to their Star Trek fan, you have got to watch this. This is amazing. Now, which sounds a little, listen, granted, that's a little self-congratulatory, and I apologize for if it comes off as arrogant, but we know what we have. We know what we're capable of making. We are Star Trek geeks par excellence. We love our Star Trek. Rob and I have been Star Trek fans for 50 years. Well, Rob a little less.
Right.
I'm 55.
Right.
And we love our Star Trek like no other franchise, and we've just meant to honor it. And do something, and whatever CBS says, whatever Paramount says, whatever the result of this case, we know we've been fighting the good fight because the millions of fans tell us they have.
Yeah.
No, almost no one watches Prelude and goes, "That was crap.
Yeah,
I can't watch that."
Yeah.
Well,
and I have to say, even if it was low standard, which it's not, the principle remains the same. You're not trying to make any money off of it. I haven't seen any evidence put forward that says, you're trying to make money off of this.
No, and that's one of the myths. Oh, they're making a profit, or they built a for-profit studio. Listen, we're not doing anything any of the other fan films haven't done. Star Trek New Voyages sells T-shirts that say Star Trek New Voyages on it. Well, okay, we don't sell anything that says Star Trek. We don't sell anything with Star Trek marks on it. We don't, right? People are like, you sold coffee. First of all, we didn't sell coffee. Someone else made Axanar coffee without any Star Trek marks on it. It was just Axanar, which is totally legal, right? The thing is, there's a lot of this armchair lawyering and people know nothing about. Our studio is not a for-profit studio. It is a building. It is a soundstage that we would like to rent out so we could pay the rent. Right. So there's all these myths about what we did. But listen, I'm a lawyer by training. I know a little bit. I kind of know what we could and couldn't do, and I tried to make sure. That's why we took the name Star Trek off of Axanar a year and a half ago. Right. We said let's use as little of their IP as possible. Let's use as little quote unquote Star Trek as possible. That was out of respect. But we also have a very aggressive fundraising program because, listen, we're not trying to make an episode of the original series. Right.
You're trying to make a motion picture, basically.
Or a series of films that people will have a visceral reaction to, that they love it, that it's Star Trek, that they want to see more.
Right. It's like it's on the level of a motion picture. So, and I know you have to leave in just under 10 minutes. So I wanted to, if you don't mind, we keep talking about fandom and this. As a Star Trek geek, I have a few questions for you about Axanar, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, and as you acknowledge, like when you watch Prelude to Axanar, which I've watched it more than once, it's like watching a documentary. It's like watching a really good documentary about like a war, and you're seeing footage, but then you're also seeing people commenting and reminiscing and remembering how things came together. And it basically tells the story of the first or the only really quote unquote hot war between the Klingons and the Federation, which is set just before the original series timeline. And it's called the 4 Years' War. So I went and researched. I said the 4 Years' War, and that evidently was the source for that a FASA RPG module, or had the 4 Years' War been mentioned before? Did y'all expand upon what FASA did, or where did the concept of the 4 Years' War come from?
It came from FASA.
Okay, I thought so.
Did.
I thought so.
Yeah. We recently recorded a documentary, which we're going to be releasing, called about the 4 Years' War, with both the author of the 4 Years' War FASA module, as well as Stephen Fender, who wrote a series of fan fiction novels about the 4 Years' War based on the FASA novels. So, yeah, very very cool.
It'd be what I keep telling people what I want. They're like, we got Voyager, we got JJ Trek, or not Voyager, we had Enterprise. I would like to see a series set like in this time frame. With the like when Captain Pike, you know what I'm saying, like the pre-original series. So I think it's really cool that you've done this. Now, how much of the 4 Years' War from FASA? And I don't want to steal the thunder of the documentary. If you'd rather people watch the documentary, that's fine. But how closely did you stick to what FASA came up with? Because the Ares style starship is completely new for Axanar, or was there an Ares before that?
No, it's completely new. We really didn't take much from FASA outside of the name. The name, The 4 Years' War, was really meant as an homage because Rob and I are big FASA geeks. Ironically, we both read all the books, but neither of us ever played the game. Although Rob rolled up like 170 starships. He's crazy.
So he liked playing with the rules.
Yeah. So, and I actually met the guy who created FASA recently, and he was totally thrilled with what we were doing. So the 4 Years' War was as an homage. That's what it was. We are constantly creating homages to the parts of the Star Trek multiverse we love, and that's how we view it. We kind of view the canon universe as, that's the big major Star Trek universe we all live in, but we believe there's a multiverse to Star Trek, which JJ has embraced. Right, the Kelvin universe the Kelvin timeline, as they call it, is a part of the multiverse. The mirror universe is part of the multiverse. The FASA universe is part of the multiverse because it was an officially licensed product. And we consider the Axiverse as part of the Star Trek multiverse because there are a lot of fans who consider Axanar canon. It's not, right? Let's face it, it's not.
But it could be.
Yeah. And if CBS was enlightened, it would have been. Yeah. But a lot of fans still consider it because it's the kind of Star Trek they want to see.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, and so we're honored by that. We're always incredibly honored when people say that to us, and we want to always let people know that we're fans. We're just like you. We're just making a Star Trek fan film. That's the difference.
Well, the thing is which I think that CBS, there's got to be people in CBS who get this, but the corporate and the lawyers and whatever obviously don't. They're so terrified of a good fan film stealing pent up demand or whatever for this new series that's coming out in 2017. There's enough Star Trek demand. It'll just heighten the desire for more Star Trek, in my opinion. I don't think having stuff on the quality of Axanar will keep people from wanting to watch, this new thing coming out in 2017 or Star Trek Beyond or any of that. But, what you're doing is great. And you mentioned the multiverse. One of the genius things that I think that J.J. Abrams did was he rebooted Star Trek while leaving the Prime Universe in place. I think
absolutely.
That was a stroke of genius.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was a stroke of genius.
And it got all of us Star Trek fans to say, you respect the franchise.
Right.
Now, listen, a lot of people hate JJ Trek. I'm not going to argue with them. They can have their opinions. We all like and dislike certain aspects of Star Trek, whatever. I feel that the hatred that they show towards JJ, I've always felt it's inappropriate. I felt it's entitled, and I feel that it's not good. It neither speaks well for Star Trek fans, nor is it healthy. And I think there's been a whole series of articles lately outside of Star Trek about how we as nerds all feel entitled. There's a whole negative underground to fandom, which we have certainly seen at Axanar from these haters. You get these tiny, small little groups that just feel that they're entitled to try and make your life miserable, which they don't, because we're smarter than that. But all of that negativity is not what Star Trek is about.
It's really not. I mean, it's about optimism, and that's what I like. JJ Trek. I think they're good action movies, and I think that they tell great stories about characters. The one thing that I think is missing from JJ Trek is the optimism and the exploration, but maybe they'll get there. I feel like he's trying to work towards that. But there is some optimism. There's some whatever that should define diversity. Infinite diversity and infinite combinations and all those things. Listen, I know you're about to go. I've got one last question for you, and then I want to play an audio clip that I put together for you in honor of Axanar and what Axanar is doing. Real quick, your depiction of Kelvar Garth, Garth of Izar, he's got sort of a dynamic yet humble quality that a lot of real war heroes have.
Yeah.
How hard was that to develop in your acting? Because he's obviously competent and knows it, but he's very humble about it. So how hard was that to do?
That was all deliberate. When you write a character, I learned this from Robert Key, who's like the godfather of Hollywood screenwriting. And he said in his seminar, and he says it in his book, Story, quote unquote, which is the definitive book on Hollywood screenwriting. He says, look, what you do is you go and you write the backstory of this character. And if you really develop the character first, before you write anything, you understand this character, you understand their motivations, their likes, their dislikes, their fears, their love, their everything. If you do that, then when you go to write the script, all you do is take that character and place him in a situation, and the script writes itself. And it's true. It's true. And so I've been living with Garth for 25 years. I wrote my first Garth story 25 years ago. And in developing Prelude to Axanar, I knew exactly what I wanted. It's exactly what you said. I wanted a guy.
Yeah.
Thanks. I wanted a captain who he did not want to be the hotshot general. He was an explorer, because we know from Whom Gods Destroy that he charted more worlds than any other captain. So he's an explorer. We know that. So he's the reluctant warrior. So we tried to build that in, and we spent a lot of time in rehearsal watching Band of Brothers and watching those interviews.
Right. Yeah, I know. Okay, well, that makes sense because you nailed it. Go ahead.
And the best compliment I ever got about my acting in that, which was, listen, I'm not a professional actor, and I readily admit it, but one fan said to me, God, I saw Colonel Winters in you when you did. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. That's the best thing
that's what it reminded. I knew it reminded me of something, but yeah, there's a humble yet powerful sense to Garth. Listen, I want to play you out on, I know you need to go. I want to play you out on some audio I put together for you. It sounds to me like you're prepared to hang in the lawsuit. Sounds to me like, you're in some form or fashion, Axanar is moving forward. I salute you, because there's a lot of people looking up to you right now, including me, on what's happening here, and are inspired by what you're doing. What I'm about to play for you is not tongue-in-cheek at all. I mean this. So go ahead and play this, GL.
Yet our best trained, best educated, best equipped, best prepared troops refuse to fight. Matter of fact, it's safe to say that they would rather switch than fight. Fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power. Fight the power. Fight the power! Fight the power! Fight the power! Fight the power! We got to fight the powers that be!
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission: to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
And folks, that's this week for Shane Plays Radio, the Alec Peters of Star Trek Axanar. We'll catch you next week on Shane Plays Radio, Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love.
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.